The alert came during the night shift. Ambassador Krelix was reviewing trade agreements when his console lit up with red warnings. Something was transmitting from the dead zone. That should have been impossible. The dead zone was what everyone called the old Sol system. It had been dead for 40,000 years. Nothing lived there anymore. Nothing could live there. The radiation would kill any biological creature in minutes. Even machines broke down in that poisonous space. Krelix pressed his 6 fingers against the console. His scales turned pale blue with worry. Computer, check the signal's origin. Signal confirmed. Point of origin, Sol system. Sector 01. Ancient human frequencies detected. Both of their hearts skipped a beat. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. The Devourers had killed them all when they destroyed Earth. It was in every history book. It was taught to every child in Milos. Play the message, he said quietly. Static filled his office. Then a voice spoke. It was old, distorted, but clear enough to understand. Run. That was all, a single word. But the computer indicated that the message was being repeated in 847 different languages, human languages, dead languages, languages no one had spoken in 40 millennia. Krelix immediately convened an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Within hours, representatives of 50 species gathered in the Great Chamber of Concord Prime. The enormous hall could hold thousands, but today only the most senior members of the council attended. The matter was too sensitive for the public. The council leader stood at the central lectern. She was a tall, crystalline Borlax, and her body refracted light in rainbow patterns. We have all heard the transmission, said Tin. The question before us is simple. Is this message real or fake? It has to be fake, said General Croc. The old warrior slammed his fist on his table. Humans have been dead for 40,000 years. This is someone's idea for a joke, a very bad joke. But who would play such a joke? Asked Minister Yuna. She was small, barely half the height of Krelix, but her kind was known for its wisdom. The dead zone is forbidden. No one goes there. No one can survive there. Long enough to plant a fake sign. Perhaps it's an ancient message, another council member suggested. Something that's been transmitting all this time and that we've only detected now. Krelix stepped forward. Permission to speak. Council leader. Zin's crystals flickered green. Ambassador Krelix, you discovered the signal. Share your analysis. I've studied the transmission carefully. Krelix deployed holographic data that floated above the council chamber. The message wasn't sent 40,000 years ago. The signal uses quantum encryption methods that we only developed 300 years ago. Someone sent this message recently, very recently. In the last month, silence fell over the chamber. That changed everything. Impossible, General Croc muttered. Nothing lives in the dead zone. A young voice spoke from the back. Perhaps something does live there. Something we don't know about. Everyone turned. A young Turan woman stood near the entrance. She had green skin and 4 eyes and carried a data tablet covered in notes. Krelix recognized her. Dr. Ben, a xenoarchaeologist. She was barely 30 cycles old. Doc, the council leader said slowly. Tane, you're not a member of the council. What are you doing here? I asked you to attend, Krelix said. She's our foremost expert on human civilization. If anyone can verify this message, it's her, Dr. Ben. She stepped forward nervously. She was young for such an important meeting, and many of the senior counselors looked at her with doubt, but she held her head high. I've spent 10 years studying human ruins, she said. I've translated their books, examined their art, analyzed their technology. I believe this message is authentic. Based on what evidence? General Croc demanded. Dr. Ben projected her own holograms. Ancient human writing appeared in the air. The message uses grammatical structures that are uniquely human. It uses languages that were considered dead even before the destruction of the earth. No one alive today could perfectly forge this. Whoever sent this message is either human or has access to perfect human records, but humans are extinct, Minister Yuna said quietly. They are. Dr. Ben's 4 eyes flashed. We know the earth was destroyed. We have proof of that, but we have proof that all humans died. This caused an uproar. Council members shouted over each other. General Croc called it nonsense. Others demanded evidence. Council leader Tayan had to use her amplified voice to restore order. Explain yourself, Dr. Ben ordered. The young scientist took a deep breath. The Devourers attacked Earth 40,000 years ago. That's a fact, but think about the timeline. The Devourers weren't fast. They moved from system to system, consuming everything. According to ancient records, humanity had almost 500 years' notice. 5 centuries to prepare. And, General Croc asked, humanity was incredibly advanced, Dr. Ben continued. They had space travel, they had colonies on other worlds in their system, they had gigantic ships. And if they didn't stay to fight, and if they ran, Crakes felt his scales change color again. He had never considered that possibility. Dr. Ben continued now more quickly. Enthused by her own theory, we assumed the humans died because we didn't find any survivors after the Devourers left. But what if they evacuated? What if they took their entire civilization and fled into deep space before the Devourers arrived? Then where have they been for 40,000 years? Minister Yuna asked. Hiding. Surviving. Evolving. Dr. Ben looked around the chamber, and now they've sent us a message, a warning, a word. Run. The council chamber fell silent again. Everyone understood the implication. If humans were warning them to run, something terrible was coming, something bad enough to frighten a species that had survived for 40,000 years. The council leader, Tan, spoke in a low voice. What do you recommend? Send an expedition, Dr. Ben said immediately. We need to investigate the dead zone. We need to find out who sent this message and why. That's suicide, General Croc objected. The radiation alone would kill any crew before they even reached the inner system. We have new shielding technology, Craig said. It's experimental, but it might work. I volunteer to lead the mission. I volunteer as well, added Dr. Ben. Tin's crystals flickered with various colors. He was thinking. Finally, he spoke. Very well. We'll authorize a research vessel. Small crew, maximum shielding. You will investigate the origin of this transmission and report back. If there is any danger, you will withdraw immediately. General Croc stood up furiously. This is nonsense. We should be sending a military fleet. Not scientists. If this is a threat, we need information before sending warriors, Tin retorted. Science first, then, if necessary, war. The council voted. It was close, but the expedition was approved. Krelix and Dr. Ben would depart in a week, taking a small team, the best ship available, entering the dead zone, and uncovering the truth. When the council meeting ended, Krelix stood with Dr. Ben outside the large chamber. The young scientist was trembling slightly. Are you afraid? He asked, terrified, she admitted, but also excited. We may be on the verge of discovering the greatest mystery in galactic history. Crakes looked up at the stars visible through the transparent dome above them. Somewhere out there, in the deadly radiation of the dead zone, something awaited them, something that had survived 40,000 years, something that was afraid. That worried him more than anything else. If humans were scared enough to send a warning after surviving for 40,000 years, what kind of monster was approaching? She would soon find out. They would enter the dead zone in 7 days. What they found there would change everything. The word echoed in her mind as she drove away. Run. The research vessel Horizon's Edge took 3 weeks to reach the dead zone. It was a small ship, built for science, not war. The crew numbered only 12. Krelix commanded the mission. Dr. Ben led the research team. Chief of Security Vax, a massive Krelnian, was in charge of protection. The journey was tense. Everyone knew they were heading into the most dangerous region of known space. The radiation alone could kill them if the shields failed. And that was before considering whatever had sent the message. Dr. Ben spent most of the journey in her lab, analyzing every scrap of data on humans she could find. Krelix visited her there, brought her food, and made sure she rested. "I found something interesting," he said one afternoon. He projected a hologram showing the solar system as it had been 40,000 years ago. "Look at this." 3 days before the Devourers arrived, all human transmissions stopped completely. All radio signals, all communication, everything went silent. "They knew the Devourers were coming," Krelix said. "More than that, they planned it. A coordinated blackout across their entire civilization." Dr. Ben's eyes sparkled with excitement. "That level of organization suggests something we never considered." And if the evacuation wasn't desperate and if it was methodical, Krelix sat down slowly. "Do you think they had a plan? A real plan to survive?" "I think they've been planning it for centuries. The Devourers gave them 500 years' notice. That's plenty of time to build an entire civilization elsewhere." He showed more data. "Look at their shipbuilding records from the last century. They built thousands of gigantic ships, colony ships, generation ships, warships. Where did they all go?" "That's what the doctor said." "Come, that's what we're about to find out." Warning alarms began as they crossed into the dead zone. Radiation levels spiked immediately. The shields held, but the ship nearly shuddered as it cut through the contaminated space. "Critical radiation levels," the pilot announced. "We can't stay here much longer." "Onward," Krelix ordered. Heading toward the coordinates where the signal originated, they passed first through the outer planets. Jupiter's massive form was dark. Its storms had long since died. Saturn's rings had scattered into debris. Everything was cold, everything was dead. Then they reached the inner system and encountered something impossible. "Ambassador," the pilot said, her voice trembling. "You have to see this." On the main screen appeared structures, enormous structures, orbiting where Earth had once stood. They were ancient, clearly 40,001 years old, but they were intact. Working. "What is that?" asked Chief Security Officer BX. Dr. Ben was already analyzing the data, habitats, space stations, some kind of orbital infrastructure, and it's active. "Life support is up and running. Power is flowing. Someone lives here," Krelix said in the dead zone. After 40,000 years, the communications console beeped an incoming transmission, not the automated "run" message. This was different. "Direct," he replied, the communications officer asked. Krelix looked at Dr. Ben. She nodded. "Open the channel." The screen changed. A face appeared. A human face, a middle-aged man with short, dark hair and eyes that had seen too much. He wore a uniform covered in patches and symbols. Behind him, Krelix could make out something resembling a command center. "Navigated," the human said. His voice was calm, but firm. "You are in restricted space. State your purpose." For a moment, no one on the Horizon's G could speak. They were looking at a human, a living human. After 40,000 years, Krelix found his voice. "I am Ambassador Krelix of the Galactic Council. We received a message, a warning. We came to investigate." The human's expression didn't change. "The warning wasn't an invitation. You should leave now." "We need to understand," Dr. Ben said, stepping forward. "We need to know what they're warning us about. And we need to know how they survived." The human studied them for a long moment, then sighed, and something in his eyes softened slightly. My name is Commander Chen. I lead the defense forces of what remains of humanity. He paused. If you want answers, you'll have to come aboard. But I warn you, once you know the truth, you won't be able to unknow it, and you'll wish you'd run when you still could. The docking process took an hour. The human station was enormous, much larger than it appeared from the outside. As they approached, Craig saw damage to the hull. Old damage. Repaired countless times. This place had seen battle. The head of security, BXS, insisted on accompanying them. Dr. Ben wouldn't be left behind. Craig agreed. They would face this together. The airlock opened, and they entered the human station. The interior was functional, almost Spartan. Illuminated metal corridors through harsh, white lights. Everything was clean, but worn, used. This wasn't a museum, it was a military installation that had been in operation for a very long time. Commander Chen greeted them at the airlock. He was taller than Craig had expected. Most humans in historical records were shorter, but Chen was nearly 6 feet 6 inches and his build suggested strength. Welcome to Bastion Station, Chen said. Please follow me. They walked through the corridors. Craig noticed other humans as they passed. They all wore military uniforms, all moved with purpose, and all looked exhausted. No, the exhaustion of a long day, the exhaustion of a long war. Chen led them to a conference room. Inside, a hologram displayed the galaxy, but it wasn't the galaxy as Craig knew it. This map showed something else. Red zones stretching across multiple sectors, entire regions marked as contaminated or destroyed. Sit down, Chen said. This is going to take some time to explain. They sat down. Dar. Ben had her tablet ready, recording everything. Security Chief BX kept a hand near his weapon. Krelix simply waited. Chen stood in front of the projection and began to speak. 40,000 years ago, the Devourers came to Earth. You know that part of the story. What you don't know is what we learned about them. He touched the projection, and images appeared, enormous ships, millions of them. The Devourers aren't just destroyers, they're processors. They consume civilizations and use the resources to build more of themselves. They're a machine intelligence gone wrong, self-replicating, self-improving, unstoppable. We know that, Craig said. General Kroc said the same thing in the council. No, Chen said quietly. You know what you saw. You saw them destroy Earth, but you didn't see what came next. The Devourers didn't stop at Earth. They continued, consuming the Centauri colonies, then the Barnard settlements, then the Wolf systems. They kept going, and humanity fled before them. The projection shifted. Now it showed a timeline stretching back 40,000 years. We ran. We ran for centuries, always ahead of them, always narrowly escaping. We built new homes on the edges of space. They found us. We ran again. We lost billions. Trillions. We lost everything except the will to survive. Dr. Ben leaned forward. But they're still here. They survived. We survived because we learned, Chen said. His voice hardened. We learned how to fight them. We learned their weaknesses. We learned that running wasn't enough, so we stopped running. The projection shifted again. Now it showed battles, massive fleet clashes, humans fighting against overwhelming odds. 20,000 years ago, we made our last stand. Here in the ruins of our home system, we fortified the dead zone, weaponized radiation, built defenses capable of withstanding, and we've been holding on ever since. Crixos' scales turned an icy white. They've been at war for 20,000 years. 23,412 years, Chen corrected. Give or take a few decades. We've lost count of the exact number of battles, but yes, continuous war for over 20 millennia. The room fell silent. The implications were colossal. While the rest of the galaxy lived in peace, building civilizations, trading, and exploring, humanity had been fighting for its survival alone, for longer than the recorded histories of most species encompass. "Why didn't you contact the Galactic Council?" Krelix asked. "Why didn't you ask for help?" Chen's laugh was bitter. "We tried. For the first 1,000 years, we sent out distress signals, begged for help. No one came. No one even answered. Eventually, we understood the truth. The galaxy had forgotten us. Oh, it decided we weren't worth saving." He fixed his gaze on Krelix. "So we saved ourselves." Dr. Ben's voice was barely a whisper. "What happened to you? Your species. You're different from the humans in our records." Chen nodded slowly. "War changes you. 23 years of constant conflict. We evolved. We adapted not just culturally, but biologically. We used genetic modification to survive in hostile environments. We integrated technology to fight more effectively. We became what we needed to be." He gestured to himself. "I'm no longer completely organic. None of us are. We enhanced ourselves to be better soldiers. The best survivors became weapons," said BX security chief. It wasn't an accusation, it was a statement of fact. Chen said it simply because the alternative was extinction. Krelix finally asked the question that had been building in his mind. "Why send the warning now? After 40,000 years of silence, why contact us?" Chen's expression turned grim. "Because the Devourers are moving again. For 23,000 years we've contained them here in this region of space. But their numbers have grown. They've been building, preparing, and now they're ready to expand." He changed the projection one last time. The image showed a massive fleet. Millions of ships. No, billions, more than Krelix could count. This is the Devourer's primary fleet. 7 million capital ships, billions of support ships. Countless drones. They've been gathering for 1,000 years, waiting for the signal to advance. And 3 months ago, the signal was sent. They're coming, and they're not coming for us. Chen pointed to the map. They're coming for you, for the Galactic Council, for every inhabited world in the mapped space. The silence in the room was absolute. "How much time do we have?" Krelix asked. 6 months, Chen said. Maybe less. They move slowly, but they don't stop. When they reach the Council space, they'll consume everything. Every world, every station, every ship, just like they did to Earth 40,000 years ago. Only this time there are millions of them. Dr. Ben was trembling. "What can we do?" "You can run," Chen said. "That's why we sent the warning. Pack up your civilizations, flee to the outer reaches. Find empty space and hide. Maybe you'll survive." "Maybe," Bax asked. "The Devourers will hunt you down. They always do, but maybe you'll buy yourselves a few centuries, maybe a millennium if you're lucky." Chen's voice was flat, empty. "That's all we can offer. A chance to run." Crick stood up. His legs felt weak, but he forced himself to remain upright. "There has to be another way. If you've contained them for 23,000 years, there has to be a way to defeat them," Chen said. He walked over to another console and displayed new data. "We call it the Omega Array. It's a weapon capable of destroying the entire Devourer fleet in one fell swoop." Hope ignited in Krelix's chest. "Then use it. Destroy them before they reach the Council space." "We can't," Chen said. "The Omega Array has a flaw. It destroys all machine intelligence within its range. All of it. The Devourers, our AI systems, and anyone with cybernetic enhancements or digital consciousness." He pointed to himself again. "We are now more than organic. The Omega Array would kill us along with the Devourers. They would sacrifice themselves, Craig said. If necessary, but there's a problem. Chen's expression tightened. The Omega Array's range extends far beyond this system. It would reach the space of the Council. It would destroy their AI-controlled ships, their medical systems, their infrastructure. Billions would die. Their civilization would collapse. Dr. Ben brought her hands to her mouth. They're trapped. They can't use the weapon without destroying us. But without it, the Devourers will destroy us anyway. Now they understand, Chen said quietly. That's why we sent the warning. That's why we told them to run, because we don't have good options, only terrible ones. And time is running out. Crakes looked at the projection, the massive Devourer fleet preparing to march across the galaxy. He thought of the Galactic Council, of the thousands of species living in ignorant peace. He thought of Dr. Ben's enthusiasm. In her hope of uncovering the greatest mystery in history, she had been right. It was the greatest mystery, and the truth was worse than anyone had imagined. We have to go back to the Council, Craig said. They have to know. They won't believe you, Chen said. They've forgotten us. We're ghosts, myths dead for ages. 40,000 years. Why would they trust the word of ghosts? Because I will make them believe, Craig said, because the alternative is the end of everything. Chen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. We will give them all the data we have, evidence, proof, everything they need to convince them. He paused. But know this, Ambassador, once they know the truth, the Council will have to choose between fleeing and abandoning their homes or staying and fighting alongside us. Both options lead to suffering. Both options lead to death. Which would you choose? Dr. Ben asked. Chen's smile was grim. We already chose. 23,000 years ago we chose to fight, and look what it made us. He gestured around the station. Is this what you want for your people? An eternity of war, a transformation into living weapons. I don't know, Crakes admitted, but I know that running is not the answer. My people have a saying, the hunter who flees the predator dies tired. Better to face it head-on. Terms. For the first time, Chen's expression showed something other than exhaustion. Perhaps respect or recognition. Then go, Ambassador, return to your council, tell them what you've learned, and pray they listen, because if they don't, everything we've fought for, everything we've sacrificed, will have been for nothing. They left Bastion Station with terabytes of data. Evidence of humanity's 40,000-year war, proof of the ravenous invasion to come, and a terrible choice no one should ever have to make. As the horizon sedge pulled away from the dead zone, Krelix stood on the bridge, watching the human station shrink on the screen. Dr. Ben was beside him. They're still human, he said quietly. After everything they've been through, after everything they've become, I still saw it. That core of humanity, I know, Krelix said. That's what scares me the most. They became monsters to fight monsters, and they remain the kindest monsters I've ever known. The journey back to the Council space took 3 weeks. 3 weeks to process what they'd learned, 3 weeks to prepare the report, 3 weeks to dread the reception they would receive. When they finally arrived on Concord Prime, Krelix called for an immediate emergency session of the full Galactic Council. Not just the veteran members, everyone, all 50 species, all their representatives. It was far too important for a small gathering. The great chamber was packed. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy murmured with curiosity and concern as to why Ambassador Krelix had called such an urgent meeting that might require the attention of the entire council. Krelix walked to the central lectern. Dar. Ben stood beside him, her 4 eyes nervously scanning the crowd. Council leader Thanin's glasses flickered with curiosity. Ambassador Krelix, Thanin said, you have returned from the dead zone. What did you find? Krelix sighed deeply. His scales shifted through a spectrum of colors as his emotions battled within him. Then he began to speak. Honorable members